Okay, so now I'm going to make people feel uncomfortable because two of us have to leave.
We have too many people in here.
Too many people in here.
I can answer questions by Zoom.
Okay.
I can actually go.
Okay.
Yeah. Kevin, good to see you, buddy.
Same, yeah, no worries.
See ya.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll tune in a few minutes.
Wasn't me.
I'm not first to Mike.
All right. Okay. So it is Monday, June 22nd at 9:02. And I'm going to go ahead and call the Executive Cabinet meeting for the Board of County Commissioners to order. Let the record reflect that we have both Commissioner Kearns and Cooney present, and then a whole host of other people. So Maggie, you're going to be leading this, so you can choose to introduce the folks that you've got as part of your group. I'm not sure that everybody is participating in the conversation. So, all right, Maggie, it's up to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. I'm Maggie Yates, Law and Justice Administrator. There's several department heads and elected officials joining us via Zoom. I know that Tim Fitzgerald, Spokane County Clerk, plans on addressing the board during the meeting, but I don't believe anyone else is. However, if there's any sort of oversight in terms of the department's requests, please feel free to jump in and make sure to clarify anything that I might have left out or misrepresented. I'm here today to just go over a list of requests from various law and justice departments for CARES Act funding. I did not, sorry, just making sure we can see the screen. I didn't filter out any of the requests. Anything that came in, I've included on this list, regardless of whether I may or may not think that it would be eligible for CARES funding. I'm really leaving that up to the board and the experts to make those determinations. There, as I said, many people joining us on the Zoom call who will be able to answer any specific questions about some of these requests. I'm really here just to provide the consolidated list. And I also, as you'll see, included requests from city partners related to law and justice. If there were a range of estimates, I included the high end of that range. And then some departments were able to give very precise quotes, and also others had letters of support for requests that they made. So we're compiling a packet of underlying documents for the Board of County Commissioners just as a reference for you in case you have any questions. I've split up the requests into three separate categories. The first is requests by departments. This really is the bulk of the presentation. And then we have a second category of programmatic investments. And these are programs that don't necessarily fit under a single department, but will be familiar to many of us because they come up in various contexts, including the SRLJC and Justice Task Force. And then the third category are additional opportunities for investments. I include this category knowing very well that the board is sort of being, is having to deal with a lot of requests for resources, and that you're positioned to really guide us through some tough financial circumstances. So perhaps all of these requests aren't going to be able to be funded. However, I think it's helpful food for thought to make sure that we're still thinking about maximizing partnerships, so across system stakeholders and community partners, to make sure we're thinking about how to help people avoid our criminal system and avoid resources being spent accordingly, and also helping them come back home and stabilize both in terms of safety and health. So the first request by department you'll see really fall into three different areas primarily. One, technology to help facilitate telecommuting, requests for technology that will help facilitate remote court hearings, and then other requests to help deal with a backlog of cases that courts are bracing for. And you'll see some additional requests that don't really fit into any of those themes as well.
Somebody needs to turn their mic on or mute. We're getting a lot of back feed. So could you check and make sure you've got muted if you're not speaking? Thank you.
with municipal court, I have not, these are in no particular order throughout the presentation. We'll just start here. You'll see that municipal court's requesting cleaning supplies, PP&E, and again, the technology devices to facilitate telecommuting and remote hearings. And the request comes in just under $27,000. For those of you pulling out the hard copy packets, you'll see that this was a draft that was circulated late last week. However, we kept getting requests in through Friday, so what's on the screen is most up to date, and I'll make sure you get updated hard copies as well.
So what's the logic behind the municipal courts requesting funds from the county? They've got their own CARES funding to handle municipal issues.
I know that the county has a bulk of the funding, and I was just asked to pull together all law and justice related requests.
Okay.
Since we have so many regional endeavors, I thought it was appropriate here to include them. And again, it's up to the board to determine appropriate funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, I included the city prosecutors. So they're also asking for preventative measures with PPE and disinfectant. They're also requesting desktop scanners, and you'll see this in a few other departments as well. This is to help collect electronic signatures, which is critical for, again, remote court hearings. So they're asking for about $10,000 worth of those desktop scanners. The city public defenders are asking for the installation of some windows to facilitate social distancing in the office, as well as desk shields. And then they're also requesting 2 part-time seasonal attorneys to help with the case backlog, which would cost about $38,000. They're seeking reimbursement for some PPE and cleaning supplies, disinfectants. And then they also raised the request of PPE for providers and therapeutic courts. Community court is a well-known therapeutic court on the city side, but we also have therapeutic courts at the district court and superior court as well. And municipal court, or the city PDs, raised this because at community court, for instance, some of the providers aren't able to come on site because there's not adequate PPE. And so they just want to make sure that in order to help folks stabilize, there's access to that as well. Right now, providers, at least in community court, are providing those services virtually. Moving on to the Office of Pretrial Services. They're just seeking new case management software and installation to help enhance remote case management. I think Cheryl Tossred can better speak to the specificities of this software, but this is the request coming in from them at about $18,000. The county public defender is seeking laptops for all of the attorneys in the office. Again, this will facilitate not just telecommuting, but also the remote court hearings. And they're also seeking those desktop scanners that I mentioned earlier to help with electronic signatures. The total request from this department is just about $65,000. Counsel for Defense is just seeking a laptop and webcam to help with remote court hearings, which is about $2,500. The county prosecutor is likewise seeking the technology to help with telecommuting and remote court hearings, about 15 laptops. And then the county prosecutor is also seeking some light remodels of the public safety building and the Broadway building as well to help facilitate the social distancing.
Someone on the phone. Somebody on the phone? Can you mute?
No, we're picking up. We are picking up some feedback from whoever's screen name is KM Ruiz. If you could please mute.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'll just do it.
Okay.
So that's okay, thank you. The prosecutor's request comes in at just about $51,000. Superior Court Clerk Tim, I know you're on the line. He has a couple of different requests to help facilitate electronic filing and then also e-filing for domestic violence protection orders. I know he has a lot of support for this across different stakeholders. Tim, I'm not sure if you want to speak to the board about this.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and make a quick presentation on this. So good morning, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to address this well-supported CARES Act funding request. Bottom line up front, Spokane needs electronic filing. We need to do it right. So our ask is $89,000. That's the high end of the salary range for an IT business analyst. This analyst, who in the next 6 months will review our current systems, research available e-filing systems, and then recommend to us the best option for e-filing. As an aside to this, if the recommendation can be made before the 6-month timeline is done, we'll come back to the board and ask for a funding request to actually purchase and install this system. The COVID-19 public health crisis has just demonstrated clearly that we need e-filing. It's one of the major capabilities. Snohomish is working on an e-filing pilot that could be very useful to us. They do 24,000 new cases a year. We do 24,500 new cases a year. They do 500,000 documents. We do 500,000 documents. So we're extremely similar, and this might be a good advantage for us. It's the safest, most efficient means to file documentation without coming to the courthouse. It's a remote system. Snohomish projected costs $150,000 a year for 5 years. That's pretty reasonable for an e-filing system. That includes the equipment, the training of the staff, implementation, and the maintenance. And just as another note here, the entire justice community supports this e-filing request. We've been endorsed by the Superior Court, the prosecutor, the public defender, the counsel for defense, director of pretrial services, the executive director of the Bar Association, the director of IT, and of course, Maggie herself. Additionally, the ad hoc family law task force, you got a letter from them. They also support this request. A key point to pass on to commissioners, this is a holistic, unified approach for e-filing for the entire county legal system. It would just sit in the clerk's office, but everybody would be using it. Second request is, again, similar to e-filing. It's an off-the-shelf electronic filing system for protection orders, all case type 2, domestic violence, stalking, anti-harassment, vulnerable adult, sexual assault, and extreme protection orders. The cost of this system is a total of $36,000 annually, depending on how the contract negotiations go. It'll take 3 weeks to install, integrate, and implement it. The community is in fully support of this, United Way, Spokane Police Department, and our advocate groups. The process is also recommended by our state Supreme Court. It'll make a positive impact on the community, and we have a lot of community support for this. As Maggie mentioned, she'll be submitting paper documentation of all the details of this information later on. That's all I have.
Thanks, Tim. So next up, Superior Court Administration has requested about $37,000. The bulk of this is to provide secure adequate spacing for jury pools in order to resume jury trials later on in July. I know Ashley Callan's on the line if there's any questions about that. The court is also looking to purchase conference phones. Again, this will help facilitate remote court hearings, and then also seeking funds for PPE. This is primarily for individuals coming into court. As you know, the courts are requiring masking during court hearings and different proceedings. District Court has requested a temporary court commissioner from June through December. That would cost about $126,000 based on their estimate, and this would be to help with the case backlog. Again, a lot of cases were sort of suspended during the stay home, stay healthy period. And then they're also looking for some additional technology in the second floor of the public safety building in that probation office where their city and county probation. They're installing an access panel and intercom to help make sure that they're limiting access and prioritizing social distancing. Juvenile Court has several requests, and this sort of encompasses both juvenile detention and the juvenile court courts as well. So they're seeking a paging system that would allow for people to wait in their cars rather than in juvenile lobby area to facilitate social distancing. This was successfully implemented in Okanagan County and just cost about $1,600. They also have limited space in their booking area in the juvenile facility, and so they're looking at remodeling that space to make sure that there's adequate room for everyone coming in, and that would cost between $50,000 and $100,000 based on rough estimates. They're also seeking a telehealth kiosk because they're limiting visitors into the building. They want to make sure that the children in custody can still access counselors and other providers who are no longer able to access them directly. And they are also seeking some security cameras to make sure that anyone in quarantine can be viewed electronically or via video as well. And then also looking for some technology to enhance remote learning for anyone in custody, as well as webcams for telecommuting. The next slide also includes some additional requests from Juvenile Court, which includes hazard pay for their essential personnel, laptops for telecommuting, and then also any sort of desktop installation that's relevant to that. The total request there comes out to about $255,000.
So have we had any reported cases of infection with the juvenile court?
Not that I'm aware of, but I know Tori Peterson's on the line. Tori?
Yeah, no, Commissioner, we have not, and it's due to efforts by our staff and taking extreme care. We are still not allowing anybody into the detention center. I have not gone back there in 2 months. We are allowing public defenders in, and that is it. And we reduced our population too, and our screening criteria.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you.
Thanks, Tori. Next, we have detention services. There are several capital sort of requests on here, including the intake and releasing facility. This is something we've talked about before. It would be an adjacent facility to really handle the book and releases. This means individuals who are about to return back to the community wouldn't even have to set foot in the jail, and Director Sparber and others have been working diligently to minimize the individuals coming in order to limit the potential exposure and spread of the virus in the detention facility. Everyone is well aware of how dangerous it could be if introduced into the jail. That's also why Director Sparber is seeking the sprung structures that he's discussed with the board before. So that's included here as well. And then he's also working on the in-custody remote court hearings. So this is for individuals, so if you're in custody, instead of having transport take you from the jail to the courtroom, you could actually have a confidential area in the jail where you would participate in court proceedings remotely. Sorry, Commissioner French.
Jerry?
I just wanted to point out something. The board already knows this, and Mike, we've talked about this before. We've got a lot of emails that came in about people being very opposed to using any of these funds to build additional jail capacity. And I just want to stress again, this is not additional jail capacity. The idea behind the sprung structure is to avoid what's going on in Coyote Ridge right now, that we need a place to put people that are affected to get them out of the general population. I just wanted to point that out on record.
Thank you, Jerry. And I would also, chime in too to let you know that we're just trying to manage the population that we have, or in any anticipated growth that will come out of the courts, and try to keep them in a safe, safe amount and spread out. The social distancing would definitely take place if we had the sprungs in place. I would also say that these costs are preliminary, because we have some research being done by Integris. And so I would ask for, I don't anticipate it'd be a lot more, but anticipate some leniency on some of the funds that we didn't anticipate or that might come up along associated with these.
Thanks, Director Sparber. Director Sparber and Lieutenant Robeson are also looking at what it would require to sustain the expanded electronic home monitoring for individuals. They've increased the use for sentenced population wherever safe and appropriate to do so. And so making sure that we can continue that, again, to manage the population as best as possible without putting the cost of electronic home monitoring on the individual. And so that's still being investigated.
Also, Maggie,
Yep, please, go ahead.
I don't see on here the reimbursements for what we've spent, in the COVID battle. I know that Bryce is on the line too, and I think Carrie Grittal and him have been talking back and forth about those. I see her shaking her head, so just want to note that I don't see them on the PowerPoint here.
Great, I'll look back in with Bryce and make sure that we include that in the final version for the board.
Maggie, can I speak to that before we go any further? Most of that is going to be turned into FEMA. So that's a different category when we're talking about the cost of your PPE and the cleaning. That is all being included in our FEMA request and can be covered. So I don't know that you would want it on your COVID care money consideration at this point. And some of it also has gone to the city of Spokane and the city of Spokane Valley for coverage as well. So you'd be kind of double dipping if you put it on here, because a lot of it is going to be covered.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that.
Okay. So next up, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, they're requesting a few different items. They are seeking a vehicle disinfectant program or technology that basically heats the patrol cars to a certain degree to kill the virus. And that costs about $16,000. I believe Under Sheriff Ellis may be on the line, as well as Todd Milkey, in case there are any questions about these requests. They're also seeking full face protection MSA respirators so that deputies responding to a call are protected whether the person is COVID positive or it's unknown whether the person has COVID-19. And then they're seeking thermal imaging systems for the helicopter to allow them to use the helicopter for social distancing purposes. That would cost about $300,000. And then finally, they're seeking some new software that would allow them to track individuals who might be out sick with COVID-19, have relevant symptoms, and then it also is used to track use of force incidents as well. So those requests come out to just a little bit over $426,000. I'm not sure if Under Sheriff Ellis is on the line, but they also provided an underlying sort of justification for that I'll submit to the board for consideration. And then next we have the hearing examiner's request, just seeking 2 laptops and an external hard drive to facilitate telecommuting. That would be about $4,000. And then finally in this category, as Tim mentioned, there was a letter that came in from the Ad Hoc Family Law Task Force making several recommendations and requests for CARES Act investments. Some of these are probably better directed to the courts, like required early mediation and judicial training, things like that. But I just include it here to make sure we have a comprehensive picture of everything that's come in, and you can sort of review the different requests and recommendations on this slide and the second slide here as well. So again, anything from a resource center in the law library to motions on the pleadings, for instance. So that takes us through the bulk of the presentation. The next category, programmatic investments, as I said, really trying to think about how to best conserve and leverage limited resources across the justice system. This first recommendation or request is for supervised release. This is something that many of you are aware of. We submitted a grant application to WASPIC for this funding. I include it here just so the board is aware. If we don't secure funding, then we'll be sort of without the ability to move forward on this. This has the potential of reducing the need for jail beds, as we discussed at the Justice Task Force. So again, it's helpful in terms of population management and minimizing the potential spread and exposure of a virus in the jail. And it's the program where individuals are released pretrial to a case manager when safe to do so, so that that case manager can help them get safe and stable in the community. Next up, I've included a court appearance support program. And we actually discussed this a little bit during the Justice Task Force meetings as well. In Minneapolis, the county partnered with Lyft to help people get to and from court with a rideshare program. Harris County, Texas has started paying for cab fare for individuals coming back home from jail so they get safely from jail into quarantine or social distancing. And so this is an opportunity for us to establish something similar. This will primarily help with the court backlog, making sure people get to court so that they can resolve their cases, and then also avoid any sort of bench warrants for someone's failure to appear in court, which may result in their arrest and again being booked into jail, exposing law enforcement, detention services employees, and others who are incarcerated. Next, I've included community-based remote court access. So you've heard me talk a lot about the request to enhance remote court hearings, but just to make sure that everyone who is not incarcerated, who are back out in the community, have access to those hearings, we've also included the possibility of establishing secured booths in the community, whether that's at shelters or other sort of frequently accessed locations that would just have Zoom access to the court hearings, where individuals again can participate in their proceedings or contact their public defender to make sure that they don't sort of lose track of their cases. So those requests come out to about $600,000, noting that a couple of them need additional vetting and budget development. And then finally, the just last areas for investments. Again, these are not sort of, would require additional work to develop budgets and further vet them. But I did get the idea because the state of Indiana put out RFPs to the community to come up with treatment and prevention for domestic violence, for instance. So I've included family violence treatment and prevention here as one area to look at. And it just sort of raised the idea that we have the opportunity to partner with different organizations and experts to really tackle some of the challenges that are related directly or indirectly to COVID-19. So that's one area to think through. Another is housing, specifically for diversion and reentry populations. I know that the Board of County Commissioners is already working on housing grants and other efforts, so this may fall under that. Next, culturally responsive treatment for diversion and reentry populations. This is something that came up at the Justice Task Force as a recommendation and is relevant not just because of the disparities that we recognize in the jail, but also because of disparate health outcomes across racial groups, at least in terms of the national statistics. And then again, court appearance support. So if there are organizations in the community who could better help support people getting to court, in addition to the programs I previously mentioned, that's another area to think through, as well as reentry planning generally. So again, this is more accurate, the slide, rather than what you have in the handouts in front of you. If you include all of the requests that came in, it totals just about $7.1 million. If you take out any construction-related requests, either from juvenile detention booking retrofit to the capital request by detention services, if you move those into a different bucket, that would reduce the request to about $1.1 million. Programmatic investments, as you saw, were about $600,000, and the opportunities for future investments or consideration for investments would still need additional budget development.
So that 7.1 does include the cost estimate for the sprung structures as well then?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Any questions for Maggie or any of our other guests? Mary?
I do. So in the clerk's office, Tim, if you could, so I'm trying to understand, I was on the call with the Domestic Violence Coalition and watched the program. I think that's the program you're talking about. So I want to make sure that that's the same one for the electronic filing for domestic violence.
That's correct, Commissioner Cooney. That's the exact same program that you saw. That's a program that comes from Legal Adams out from the west side of the state. It handles all case type 2, the ones I mentioned, vulnerable adult, domestic violence, stalking. It's an e-filing system that can be incorporated into our current system that we have in place. in our application extender.
Okay, so how does that then, because we've, helped fund additional positions to help make sure all that information is in the system. Does that make that more efficient for you? What does that do there?
It does three things: makes it incredibly efficient. We don't need any additional positions at all. We can do it with what we have on hand right now. And it enables the victims of domestic violence, stalking, vulnerable adult to send in their information electronically to the court and then to me. And then we get it back out electronically to police records. They're not required to come to the courthouse. They're not required to go through all the traumatic events of explaining everything that's happening. They can do it from remote locations.
Because I definitely see from social distancing, keeping people out of the courthouse, that would be a huge, because how many people do you think you see a day for that?
Well, we do 23 protection orders a day right now.
Yeah, so, okay. And then on your other ask, you're asking for a business analyst to analyze the electronic, filing process. Is that correct? And so I guess I'm trying to figure out, because then I see later, electronic filing, I'm trying to figure out how we can develop these efficiencies to make the court system better. So
Yeah.
Just hiring a person, I'm not sure if that's, explain to me why that's important, I guess, again, versus.
Straightforward. We, to go do an RFI and try to find a system that will work with Becky Gerhardt and her team, trying to help us get it all implemented with the workflow between the public defender, the court, myself, and the prosecutor. To do all that, 6 months is not enough time. And the timeline is we have to have this money so far has to be spent by the end of December. So getting a business analyst in here in the next 6 months, they can evaluate our current system, what's out there that's available that can be looked at. Coeur d'Alene has a great system. So Homeless is doing a pilot on e-filing with Odyssey that could probably integrate with us. But somebody to analyze it all so I can come back to the Board of County Commissioners with a no kidding real project estimate, a budget, implementation cost, savings, and all that from somebody actually doing an analysis of it. If I had more time, we'd ask to just do the RFP and go find the system, but we don't have the time to do that. So it's better to have somebody who's an expert in the field to do it. And I would assign that person, if we get this person, I'd assign them to Becky, to the IT department, and let them work it that way through our program managers.
Thank you for explaining.
Okay, Josh, do you have any questions?
Can I ask for some details on the helicopter thermal equipment from the sheriff's department? Sort of what the details are on that.
Yeah. Maggie, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you to step in, Todd, so please feel free.
So, and Dave is probably the best versed on this. I'm not sure if Dave is still on or if he's en route to the public safety building from the Valley Precinct. But one of the things that we have found is the whole issue of the FLIR system is really about being able to, what you can see from the sky. And so as we have experienced staff shortages, as we've tried to be careful about social distancing with our troops on the ground, the air support unit is able to give us more technology to evaluate situations with fewer people. And so, and that's really, I think the gist of the FLIR system is the ability to, instead of have multiple people on the ground, whether you're in a protest situation or whether you're in a pursuit situation, rather than have more staff involved, have more staff in close personal proximity to those we're dealing with. This allows us to be able to monitor those situations, report the circumstances of the situations, and more effectively use the staff that we do have on ground. And it looks like Dave is chiming in.
Yeah, this is Dave. Hey, exactly what Todd said, trying to minimize the amount of calls that we're interacting, having our ground units do. Same thing how we're having Crime Check take more online reports. These are units that are on their last legs anyways, and are going to need replaced. So we're starting to have to spend more and more money on repairs on them. And then some of the related civil disturbance and that kind of stuff, they've been critical as far as allow us to be able to stream live video down to command posts and monitor without having to send in units to have direct contact with these groups.
Thank you.
were the commissioners supplied also with the background information on the other items?
We're compiling all the underlying documents and they'll have it within the next day.
Okay, so just for the commissioner's knowledge then, there is a explanation write-up on each of the items that we presented for your consideration. Please let us know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Todd. So any additional information the board needs? So in terms of timing, what's the timing requirement on some of these expenditures, and when do we have to make a decision to be able to move forward with those that we want to be able to move forward with?
I think really it's up to the Board of County Commissioners, but the sooner that the departments know what's approved and what's not, they'll be able to make the adjustments that they need to in order to either facilitate their telecommuting or to make sure that their staff and anyone they interact with are safe. So I know a lot of them are very eager for the board's decisions and feedback, and I realize that you are sort of being bombarded with requests, so as soon as reasonably possible.
Okay, so for Mary and Josh, what's your reaction to the request, and any sense of timing in terms of when you want to be able to tee these up for decision making?
Well, I think one of the things on there, I noticed that there were several departments asked for PPEs, and we've already made large expenditures for PPEs. So I think we could probably go through and adjust those asks as far as the masks go. But then, I think we'll probably have to have some time to kind of go through each department individually and kind of weigh those options. But I mean, I would, the quicker we get to that and kind of going through one by one, the quicker we can make a decision. So
are we meeting next week?
No.
Okay, so then we can tee this up for the Monday after next for a decision. That way it gives you time to go through and review these, and if you need additional information to be able to get it. Would that be adequate, or?
Yeah, I guess, that's waiting a while just because I know they need the funds. But we haven't actually established what we have kind of for our buckets yet. So, I mean, that's part of what we haven't done yet either. So, I mean, we got to get that accomplished so we know kind of what our, at least projections are as to what we think each area would be, we'd be spending money in. But this is something we need to know. We need to know what the estimated costs are. I think, Gary, we still need to know what the actual costs that have been incurred so far that are COVID related. And I think with Carrie, as you pointed out, some of those costs are being, reimbursed potentially by FEMA. So, I mean, that's all. We got to know kind of how all that works together to make these decisions. So, and I agree, we need to make them sooner than later, but we also have to have all the information to make these decisions.
Commissioner, I have a breakdown of what has been, and I'm trying to get that to you guys today, what has been expended under the CARES dollars. I also have the latest costs that have been incurred from in the E category of COVID dollars that I'm willing to share that with you and do a cover page to see what departments have expensed. As to laptops, I wanted to also let the commissioners know that there is a presentation tomorrow with regards to laptops countywide, and based on who's been online at any given moment, that Becky Garrett and Pat Farrell have put together, and you'll be hearing that information tomorrow. So a lot of the request on laptops that was contained in today's presentation will probably be rolled up in that as well. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that kind of that's interrelated. But I'll try to get information out to you today about what has been expended thus far, how we've spent it, and then also on FEMA, what's been incurred thus far.
Okay, so Carrie, is that, would it be helpful to have somebody from the budget office, and Gary, I don't know, because we really have to get this figured out so we can make these decisions. So, and that's, I think, part of the issue is that you know, what's being asked by some other department, you know, like with Becky with the laptops and all of that, you know, what's already been purchased, because I know there's a lot of laptops that were purchased already, that, you know, is kind of in that COVID bucket of that we coded that way, but I haven't seen those numbers yet. That, you know, is there somewhere like between you and someone in Gary's office that can kind of collate that pretty quickly for us?
Yeah, we can go through that very quickly on how it's, you know, I've got a list of every department and all expenditures. All of that would be called out anyway because FEMA won't reimburse anything for any computer equipment whatsoever. So all of that would have to be covered by CARES, but we could take a look at that fairly quickly to tell the commissioners just exactly what's been spent.
Okay, and then to know what we need to do, but then like you said, collating between what this ask is and what Becky is already planning to do, which is they're probably looking at a more, you know,
Sure.
departments. So we need to collate that too, so we know how much this would be reduced by her ask, if she's doing an ask for kind of the county as a whole for laptops.
And when you want to also know about scanners that have been purchased and some of the other items that were in here, screens, all of that, anything related to computers, correct?
Correct. Because I think that's where it's like, I mean, my assumption is you know, people bought those so they could work remotely. And so I'm trying to figure out, is this addition to that, or is those purchases already been done? Because I'm in the prosecutor's office, and again, assuming, you know, that's why we need to know the information that when he's requesting laptops for all his employees, I'm thinking some of them already have laptops or they purchased laptops so they could work remotely. And so that number is now higher than it should be. So that's what we got to get a handle on, what really is the cost and what really are the needs. I mean, I'm happy to fund those through the CARES dollars, but we got to know what really is, and knowing too that it's on a reimbursement basis. So it's not on, you know, just because we say that you get so much money for this area, it's still on a reimbursement basis. So if the money's not spent, it's, you know, it has to be spent on those purposes. So it's not just a budget that they can manage however they want to. And I think kind of a clear thing for people to know too.
Commissioner, I think what you'll hear tomorrow is what IT was able to pull up on, based on the records of how many people were logged in per day, teleworking, and coming up with a figure on what the purchase of laptops, because we've seen a number of requests come in from departments that haven't purchased them, such as like you heard last week from the prosecutor's office. So what I did is I worked with IT and they've come up with some figures and they'll be able to talk about that. And they base that on actual how many people were logging in every given day at the county teleworking from home. So we kind of went on the high end so people would know, and it may include some of these people that have already purchased, but I haven't, you know, I mean, thinking about it, I'd have to be able to pull through that, just exactly how much computer equipment has been purchased. But we'll be able to tell you that thus far, you know, what has been e-coded.
Okay.
They have a pretty good idea on the figure about who has been logging in and the number of people a day.
Right. And I think through the auditor's office, we should be able to pull a report that shows what's been coded to expenses so far to date, correct?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay. Because I'd like to see that by department.
Mm-hmm.
So the two sources of funds that we have to deal with are CARES and FEMA. There's no other source of money to cover these internal costs. Okay,
No.
all right.
And FEMA absolutely will not pay for any kind of computer equipment whatsoever. So that has to be on CARES.
Okay.
And I really don't want to, you know, speak until Becky and Pat present tomorrow. But, you know, they did an overall about how many people and doing it and basing it on laptops and docking stations and what the cost would be countywide for all the number. I mean, obviously that would be the high end because there are staff right now that have laptops that have already been purchased through the years by their departments that are doing that. But they wanted to give kind of the commissioners an idea if this, you know, COVID situation was going to carry, you know, forward for any length of time, what would be the cost of the county to be able to, you know, have staff continue to telecommute and remain safe at home. So I just wanted to make sure, because I noticed a lot of the asks contained in today's presentation had to do with laptops. So I wanted to let you know that there was another presentation coming in tomorrow that would probably contain a lot of that.
Okay. Josh, any thoughts from your standpoint?
Carrie, you're our resident expert on the CARES dollars. Was there anything in these slides that raised concerns that you thought may possibly not be CARES eligible?
Well, you know, I'd have to get a lot more information on some of the equipment that's being asked, and you know, I think we all have to step back and say, how is this related to COVID? How is this, you know, benefiting public good? I mean, that's what you really are looking at on any of this. I mean, some of it seems to fall squarely within there. Some of the programs that you're trying to get people to stay home and use, you know, the computers more, all of that's related that I see. I just want to make sure that, you know, some of the things that are being asked, people understand we've got a very short window, July, August, September, October, November, and it's done in December. So whatever we do, and however that goes, that it has to be a cost that if it's for an annual fee, you can't pay for an annual typically unless that's a typical standard industry, because it's for that period of time this money has to be expended. So we've got to be cautious about these sorts of things. So we really need, when we make decisions, to get further information. The commissioners are going to need more information to really help them make a more cogent decision on how this money is going to be expended. You can't just give grant money out. It has to be actually used during that period of time. Does that help? I hope, Commissioner.
It does. Thank you.
So Carrie, that would lead me to a question on the electronic software for the court clerk. You know, it would be an ongoing expense, but could CARES dollars pay for it for us to get it initially this year? Because it would be, I mean, it'd be, I see it as CARES related because it's keeping people out of the courthouse.
Correct.
And all of that. But then knowing that we would have to do, it's going to be an annual fee then after that we would be picking up and paying for that. Again, with the efficiencies, I think, you know, worth it. But Tim, you could speak to that, I guess.
I think the biggest point is this is something we need to do in the future anyways. And now we have an opportunity to at least get the implementation integration done. I think that would be key. Yes, it will be an annual expense later on, but again, with Snohomish, $150,000 a year is not bad for a full electronic system that supports the entire justice community.
I think though, as commissioners, we just want to make sure we're aware of it's a CARES cost now, but what's the future cost of that? So if you can make sure that we're aware, if it's, because usually your implementation and all that's more expensive, and then it's less expensive on the annual fee. So we just want to make sure that for any of these, you know, that one in particular, I just know would potentially cause that, you know, what those additional costs are going forward, that if we spend the money now, what's the ongoing costs in the future that we would be needing to take care of.
That was part of our fault with the business analysts. We'll get a pretty good solid answer. I mean, a good funding budget and everything that would take to put this in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so did just see an email from Becky to Carrie talking about computer acquisitions they've already made to date. We're looking at just short of 900,000 for remote laptops and all of that kind of stuff. So we can factor that into the equation and then see how much of this is CARES and how much of it is FEMA. And so we'll know more tomorrow in terms of information. And then let's tee this up for decision making for that Monday after we get back from the 4th. Okay. Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. All right, so next item, Mr. Hall and Ms. Wendell.
See Cindy, there's Tony.
See both of them online here, so. Who's gonna lead out?
You guys know how I love my spreadsheet, so I'll get this started. And I got my spreadsheet that I'm sharing on here. If you guys can see it, let me know.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So here's everything that has been, everything up top has been approved, purchased, and is in transit. When I first got this, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I wasn't 100% comfortable that we could get all of this in on time. But with the help of our team and our task force, we've been able to source some really great suppliers locally to fill all of our needs here. And we're actually under budget. You guys gave us a budget of about $2 million, and we're under that by almost 500,000. So far, and that's a testament to the team. Everybody's been working very hard on that. So the hand sanitizer, we are doing the pump lid like we talked about. We have 615,000 gloves that will be here delivered today. Disposable masks, we have a very small quantity that's going to be here for the first week of distribution, 150,000. And then we're planning a second phase. Right now we're thinking a second phase of distribution the last week of July, so that'd be the 27th of July, to give out these 1.5 million disposable masks. The plexiglass would also be included in that second phase. The market right now for plexiglass is out of control, and you can't even get stock. You can't even get the raw stock of this stuff in until midway through July. So it's a good second phase item. The cleaning solution, we're going through dry fly on that one. They will get us what we need on time. Cloth masks are in transit, 200,000 pairs. We were able to source kids masks, both disposable and cloth, locally, that will be here this week. So that's where we're currently at, and what we'd like to propose to you guys are some of these kind of fringe costs that go into this effort and the distribution effort mostly. So the translation services would be for people that are coming to pick up their items and do not speak English, as well as some materials, some marketing materials that would be marketed in languages other than English. So that's what that cost is. We're hoping to keep that under $1,000. We're also hoping for some parking and traffic flow. We're anticipating up to 1,000 cars a day going through the fair parking lot. Lots of traffic going through. None of us are experts in it. I could pretend, but I don't think I would be doing us a service at all on that one. So I think parking, we need some help with that one. And I have right around $3,500 budgeted for that. That's 4 people at $25 an hour.
Hey, Tony, can I, with the parking and traffic flow, is that something we can work with Scope on? Or Scope volunteers?
I've talked to him. Yeah, I've talked to him, and I'll talk to him one more time today. Yeah, I just wasn't fully comfortable with that. I don't think that's their specialty per se, but I'll give them one more shot on that and see if that's something they would be interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, that would. I have their contact info, but that's a great suggestion. Security, we had a couple different options on this one. We went with the one that made the most sense to us, and this is somebody that is stopping by 3 times a night while all of this material is in a locked up warehouse. So this is just somebody coming by 3 times a night, and it's under $1,200 for an entire month of somebody doing that. The alternative was having somebody actually on site, which we thought was overkill. That was close to $10,000 for that. We're kind of throwing that question to you guys. Do you think that we need to spend an extra $9,000 to have somebody on site circling the building all night, circling the premises? We didn't think so, but that's completely up to you guys. I see a no from Mary.
No, I
What about you, Al?
think we need that level of security.
Okay. Yeah, and it's the company that That's a no from you, Josh. Cool. Okay, so it's the company that does all security for the fairgrounds right now, so they have a really good feel of everything going on. It's a pretty great number for a full month of security, we thought, on that. Marketing, we're looking at, this isn't for the actual marketing itself, it's more for educational materials. So how to properly wear a mask, how to apply the cleaning solution correctly, things of that nature. And that ties back into the translation services. Talking with Cindy, we're going to try as much as we can to use some county. So like my department, for example, we haven't used our printer since March, since we're working remotely. So if I can help and print some things in black and white, I'll be doing that to try to cut down on these costs, and GSI will be doing the same on their end. But this is really just kind of an emergency backup in case there's a bulk need that we have for a bunch of color printing. So that's what that line's for. Something that we didn't think about before is, of course, bathrooms. We're going to have close to 70 volunteers there at any given time helping us distribute. We need to give them bathrooms and the more expensive ones so that they can also wash their hands correctly while they're volunteering, especially in this effort. And tents to go along with that. We need shade for these people. It's looking like it's gonna be hot that week. So those are the fringe items that we're looking for. They all add up to about $12,600, and that's being very conservative on our end.
Okay,
so Cindy, do you have any?
Go ahead.
Just to update you on the translation services, according to FEMA's rules, I was forwarded something from the health district that we're required, because these are CARES dollars, to have our registration and some of our directions in multiple languages. So that includes the translation services for the registration. And so the registration is now live, but later today it'll be live with options for Russian, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Marshallese. Vietnamese maybe tomorrow, but the other three will be ready later today. So that includes all those translations, and the translators are volunteering. We didn't actually pay for the Spanish one, and then they are going to volunteer on site a little bit during the week as well. And then we'll be able to access them by phone if we need to have anybody speak with somebody on the phone about translation, any of our directions on site. And then we might print some cards. So that's a little more detail on the translation. And the marketing, we are doing everything in-house. We're trying our best to get the word out. I'll be calling some radio stations today, but we've really tried not to have to pay for anything. We feel that this is a worthy enough story that it should be earned media. So we're working really hard. We'll be on Q6 tonight with Sean Owsley at 6:30. We'll do the Facebook Live on Wednesday. And then I'll be reaching out to some of our other TV partners as well, as see if we can get some in-person interviews. And then of course we'll do on-site next week. I'm going to try and stay away from the Monday morning 9 to 12, because we did reserve that time for any multi-ethnic owned businesses and or women, tribal, veteran owned. When they select that on their registration, it will pop up the Monday morning option, but plus all the other options as well. But if you are not a multi-ethnic owned business or minority, it will not give you that Monday morning option. So we're just not sure how many people are going to come through Monday, which is fine with me, because we could use that to also, work out some bugs. But we'll have media come by Monday afternoon at the earliest if they want to come by, because we may not have all the traffic that will be the normal traffic that we'll have. I will copy you on some bullet points that we're going to be sending and talking about to media. We've been pulling some data from our registration so far. We're at 350 to 400 businesses so far. And I was already looking at the data this morning on the percentage of minority-owned businesses, those that are nonprofits versus for-profit, the number of, so we've got all this data, a number of employees, the average number of employees and whatnot. So we can have all that for you in the matter of minutes. We get 3 reports a day, and I've got somebody working on that data 24/7 now, updating our reports. So anytime you need it, we've got it.
Okay.
Yep. And to add on to that, I'd also like to thank Kirsten Frost in IT for helping us with that registration survey. She's been a great help. So just a shout out to her on that.
Okay, any questions? Mary, I see you're.
No, I just have to say, this is awesome. It's great to see it's coming under budget. I think the translation services, Cindy, I was on that initial call with you with the minority businesses that definitely is an issue. So if we need to do it for federal purposes, then I think that'll be good and beneficial. And I think having that time frame for minority businesses will be really, really good. You had another meeting with them. How did that go? And did you talk about this?
We didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about this specifically, but I just have been emailing Simba, Imba, and Ahana Friday and today about getting them. They may have some transportation barriers, and we do have a question in the registration about that as well. But I'm going to be working with those organizations to do registrations offline potentially with some of their businesses, and we will do a delivery to those organizations so their businesses can access the PPE through their offices. So we'll work real hard to reduce those barriers with those organizations and any others. And so that is another key piece as well.
Josh?
Yeah, Commissioner French, that's one thing that we changed. I know originally we wanted to have a couple remote locations around the city, but we changed it just logistically to the fairgrounds, so it'd be much easier to distribute. And then we added that question to the survey that says, if you don't have transportation, that will flag GSI, and we'll figure out a way to get them their materials if they cannot physically pick it up at the fairgrounds.
Okay. Josh, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say great work. Tony and Cindy, you two have just been fantastic with this project. So I just want to say thank you for everything both of you are doing. You've gone above and beyond. Great work.
Tony's the one, when he said that the team's working really hard on the supplies, that was Tony.
No, team effort. And yeah, thank you guys for your quick response, getting me and Cindy into these meetings quickly. You guys have been awesome, getting us a very quick turnaround. This stuff is usually, it doesn't move this quickly, and you guys have been awesome on helping us move through this quickly. So thanks to you guys.
So since these are new items to the purchasing list, I need a motion to approve authorizing spending CARES money on these additional items.
Yeah, and just before I make the motion, Tony, you said this $12,600 figure is probably above what it'll come in at?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then, Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the expenditure of CARES dollars for the purpose of translation services, parking, traffic flow, security, marketing, porta potties, and tent rentals up to $12,610.62.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye, let the record reflect the motion passes unanimously. Tony, Cindy, just on my behalf, thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Great job. Mary?
I've got one more question. So just seeing all the PPE requests, that we just saw on the law and justice side. So Tony, have you been working with Gil? Because I think Gil's been purchasing for the county. It's been interesting seeing all that come through because I thought we were already taking care of that on the county side. So can you just make sure that we've got that all covered, or if we need to buy additional and we're getting the best pricing we can?
Yeah, so I'm not sure why. I wasn't on the call, but I'm not sure why they would have a need for that. We have, and I've been sending out multiple emails to everybody involved. We have 20,000 disposable face masks for county employees. And then we actually have 12,000 cloth masks for employees. And I think I distributed to 23 of the different departments. They're all kitted up. I've been working together with Gil. So maybe I'll just get with Larry on that. We should have a very good stockpile, and everybody should have what they need. If they don't, I need to find out who they are and fix that.
Okay, and maybe talk to Maggie Yates as well, because she kind of accumulated a lot of that information. But I think that's part of the issue, is like trying to make sure that we've taken care of everybody. And then it was interesting to see them do these additional requests, which was part of why when I was on the phone or on it with them saying, this is for reimbursement of expenses. And And so they should all be getting that through basically you and Gil at this point in time, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we're trying to not have people buy one-off so that we can leverage more quantity, better pricing.
So I don't know, Jerry, if you've got a department head meeting coming up soon, or maybe you need to send out a department head letter, email, just saying that, PP&E is to be taken care of for county purposes through, Tony and Gil.
I can certainly send that out. We don't have a department head elected official meeting scheduled for next month, so I'll send out an email.
Okay, I think that'd be good, because it just seemed confusing seeing those requests today.
Yeah,
when
I was confused too.
we're trying to take care of all that through, through the county. So, because I don't want
Yeah,
to
that'd be
go
great.
to the fairgrounds either. So,
Very good.
Yeah, I was just that right before we had a meeting before this. I said, this isn't the only one I'm working on. I'm also trying to outfit all of our employees. So it's been fun.
yeah, no, thanks for all of the hard work you guys are doing. So appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony. Okay,
Yeah, thank you guys.
The next topic is Mr. Gary.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to brief the board on the status of where we're at in the budget department. And I wanted to start with a quick recap on where we're at with personnel. We have 2 longtime employees who are set to retire in the department. Downs Paul is going to be retiring this week on June 25th. Margaret Smith is going to be retiring effective July 16th. Now, the plan here is that Tessa Sheldon will be promoted to the senior budget analyst effective June 16th, which was last week. And we hired Tony Kobush as a budget analyst earlier this year on March 13th. So he's just in the process of coming up to speed, understanding the systems, understanding the budget process, and he's a great addition to the team. We also hired Jason Metcalf effective July 1st from the auditor's office to supplement our staff. So we'll effectively be going from a staff of 4 to a staff of 3. Now, to get into where we're at with Questica, we're still trying to debug a few things on the 2020 reports so that I can run reports for you that show what your spending versus budget is in your general fund. We're really close to getting that done, and hopefully early next week we'll have that available to you for the first 5 months of the year, which would be through May. And then also concerning the 2021 budget, we're still trying to resolve some minor issues. They're numerous, but it has to do with making sure that the budget fields are filled in correctly and it's coming across from PeopleSoft. We're hoping to have the full rollout to the departments ready on or before July 6th, which is just in a couple weeks. And keep in mind, we'll also be receiving sales tax information for the month of April next week on June 29th. So that'll be good to see how we're going to track potential sales tax revenue losses going forward. Now, also, what I'd like to do is try to clarify our budget calendar going into this 2021 budget year, and try to establish some standardization and some dates that you feel comfortable with in looking at going forward with rolling out the 2021 budget. The first thing that I propose is that on or before July 13th, that Jerry send out a letter in collaboration with commissioners to all the county officials requesting the official request of the preparation of the 2021 budget. And included with that letter, obviously, could be things that you would like to issue as far as guidance to the departments on what you're seeing for general expectations in crafting their budgets. And I can certainly collaborate with you on that effort too. Then the next deadline would be August 10th, and I list this as a soft deadline for all the general fund departments to submit their budgets using Questica. And then another deadline that I propose would be August 24th, another soft deadline for all of the non-general fund departments, recognizing that departments like Public Works aren't fully appraised of all of the variables that go into their next year's budget until toward the end of August. And then when we get toward mid-September, I would like to see all of the preliminary budgets rolled up, tabulated, correlated, and officially presented to the Board of County Commissioners. Then usually the board has the options of meeting individually, if you so desire, with any of the departments or the larger departments that you might have questions. And from what I understand, there's been 3 public hearings scheduled for the 2021 budget already. And those are September 22nd, October 13th, and October 27th. And I just want to make sure we have confirmation that you want to keep those budget hearings to the 3 hearings and to keep those dates. And then lastly, your plan is to adopt the final budget on December 7th.
So those dates we set for hearings, we set here at the beginning of the year and stuff. So based upon what we've experienced, that we didn't know we were going to have at the first of the year, are we comfortable maintaining those dates for public hearings?
Yeah, I mean, at
Anybody
this
wanna
point, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we gotta just stick with them, and if we have to change them, we change them, you know, but it would be because, you know, because we can't have a public hearing would be the only reason.
The one thing that we've done sporadically in the past, and I'm wondering whether we want to consider doing it this time, is doing a kind of an all-day budget retreat off-site and being able to discuss some of the challenges and opportunities that we're going to have with the 2021 budget. Do we want to do that this year or not? And if we do, when do we want to do it? So question for the 2 of you.
Well, we've done that the last several years, but, you know, I think it's important to do. You know, I think it's going to be, you know, one of those where going, you know, we're over in the champions room, and I think it was worthwhile just to say that's the day we're just putting on, you know, dealing with the budget. You know, if it's a couple of days, it's a couple of days, but I think it's important to do it. We'd probably have to do it after, I mean, Gary would have to figure out when they would have all the information to get to us. So probably after that, September 14th.
Well, I would suggest maybe a little sooner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think sooner is better than waiting that long. I mean, some of these shaping the budget's going to be a philosophical discussion for the 3 of us about, you know, where do we want to prioritize funds and what do we want to do in terms of trying to cover the shortfall. So Gary's going to need that before he can actually put together a budget. So I'd suggest sooner than later, maybe sometime in the early part of August or no later than mid-August.
Well, one thing that would be helpful for benchmarking is that knowing that we'll have 6 months or a full half year worth of actuals into the system to look at as we go forward. So any time after, say, July 17th or 20th would be good.
We'll have a better handle too, because our sales tax numbers will be more up to date, and they'll capture those months that we really got throttled, as they say.
So I would suggest we wait till we've got that 2 weeks that we take off the end of August, end of July, 1st of August, correct?
So I think it's the last week in July. I'm going to my calendar here.
We don't
And the first week of August.
First week of August.
Yeah. So I would wait till after that. So that way then, you know, we're back and, you know, in full kind of budget mode then at that point.
So maybe that the week of Labor Day, or no, I'm wrong month.
It's going to be earlier than that.
Earlier than that. So maybe Monday, August 10th. Would you rather do it on a Monday or Tuesday?
I would think that there's going to be a lot that we need to take care of if we're gone for 2 weeks on that Monday, Tuesday. I don't know, just for counting purposes. I don't know if you don't think that there's much going on then. I would say by the 17th for sure of August.
I think is that running a little, that's pushing you.
No, that would be fine, I think. Because then we'll have the original department submission too.
Yeah. What day is the 17th of
Monday.
August, Gary?
Monday,
So we'll either do it on a Monday or Tuesday.
Tuesday, probably.
Well, keep in mind that Tuesday afternoon is our legislative session, so you're not going to have a full day.
Till Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, sorry.
Do we want to do a special meeting on a Wednesday or a Thursday?
You know, that just gets to where we're crowding in on other committees that we're going to end up having to not attend.
Okay.
So why don't we just schedule it tentatively for August 17th?
Gary, would you like me to reach out to PFD on the room?
Yes, please.
Right.
Champions room worked out, or the room we were in last year worked out real well.
Do you want it off-site, or do we just want it in our conference room there? I mean, I remember last time whenever we needed additional stuff, somebody had to go back to the campus or print stuff off. I mean, we didn't have all the staff right there. We had to wait for people to walk all the way down there if it was something that we needed to ask someone else. I mean, does it just make more sense to have it on our campus? I mean, even if it's HR hearing room or the elections conference room. I mean, if the goal is to get us out of our normal conference room, but do we want to actually keep it on campus, or would you think there was a benefit to being off campus?
I personally thought there was a benefit for being off campus. It gave us a very specific focus on just that one item and kept us from being distracted by all the other stuff that can happen on campus and stuff. So, you know, and I really think that this is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones, because we're going to have some very hard philosophical conversations about where and how we want to reduce funding and programs and stuff. And so I'd be very much in favor of being off campus. That's just worked better over the years than being on campus.
Okay.
I could go either way. I don't have an opinion on it.
Let's do the champions room.
Okay, 9 o'clock start time.
Yeah, start at 9 o'clock. Just run through the lunch hour. Okay.
We used our conference room, Jerry, not the champions room. Now that I think about it, it was the conference room we used.
Yeah, it's the conference room.
Thank you, because that's what I meant. The conference room is good.
Yeah.
If we can we also just make sure that the champions room is set up for Zoom? Because honestly, we don't know what restrictions are still going to be in place in August. So
okay,
let's just make sure they have what we need. Because I remember that there was some concern. Remember when we wanted to stand the ECC or the EOC up at the in the champions room or in their conference room? Chandra felt there was some issue with their technology constraints out there. I don't know what they were, but
yeah, there was in the champions room, but not so much in the conference room. The conference room is pretty much set up, but we'll confirm that. We'll make sure. So, you've given up being the eternal optimist. You think we're still going to be doing Zoom in August?
we didn't think we were going to be doing Zoom in June. But
so, all right. So that works?
That works.
Okay. Anything else, Gary?
No, that's it.
All right. So, Mr. Hanson.
They're right out the door.
Okay. So this is an executive session for labor negotiations, and will include Mr. Hanson. I'm assuming Tim is with him.
Randy's with him.
Randy Withrow, executive management team, and that will be it. So everybody else can say goodbye.
Yeah.
See you.
Guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Good. How are you?
We'll be in executive session for approximately 1 hour. If we have to extend, we will come out and do so in a public meeting. And with that,